Hey there, Erin Lee here of heavenlymessenger.com, bringing you this week's, not Tune In and Tune Up Thursday, that was last year, bringing you this week's Connection with Intention. First of all, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure for me to be able to connect with you in this way, and I'm grateful for the time that you've taken out of your day to be here with me. One of the things I've noticed over the last couple of times that we've done the show is I've had lots of questions coming in right at the very beginning, and I'm talking for a bit longer than I have in the past. So I'm just going to ask people to hold off on asking their questions just yet. I would absolutely love to see and hear that you are here, though. So please drop me a hello in the comment section. It's always great to see who's joining us this evening. So thank you for your patience. I really appreciate that. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about this evening. Intuition has been coming up really strongly when I've been connecting with people for readings. I have lots of people who are asking about developing their intuition or understanding their intuition. And one of the messages that has been coming up for me to be sharing with people a lot is one of my favorite things, and that has to do with questions. But first, before I jump into that part of things, I just want to quickly talk a little bit about intuition and why you'd want to develop it a little bit more. Intuition is something that everybody has. It's not just a couple of select people. It's not just people who have had it passed down in their line because people in their family have been really intuitive or psychic or readers. Perhaps you could be more in touch and aware because of those experiences that you've had, but everybody has intuition. Intuition is an ability that has developed out of the instincts that we have to keep ourselves safe. So, no longer are we in a time where we need to be concerned, for the most part, about predators being around us. So, for example, we don't need the alarm bells to go off when there are bears close by or something that's about to eat us. One of the caveats I put to that, living here on Vancouver Island where I do, there are a lot of natural predators that are about, so that could be really helpful. But for the average person, that's not something that we're concerned about in the way that we're living in our world today. But there are a lot of other things that are potentially dangerous or unhealthy to us, and that's where intuition comes in handy. So things like stressors or unhealthy relationships or unhealthy situations. There are lots of different ways in which our intuition can be really helpful in helping us rather make positive, healthy, lifestyle supportive choices and decisions. So that's one of the ways in which our intuition can be really powerful. People don't receive intuitive messages about the same things. And if you've been around for a little while, you've probably heard me share this experience and conversation that I had. I was doing the Body, Soul, and Spirit Expo. And when I say doing, I mean that I was a vendor. I was offering readings and I was selling the products that I used to make there as well. And the experience that I had was of this person like beelining, walking across the floor of the huge convention center we were in. And I watched him walk towards me. And this was significant for a couple of reasons. One, I was newly single. He was a very attractive man. And so it was pretty flattering to have him walking across the floor, like beelining. But also it kind of signified to me that it was an important conversation that we were going to have. And it turns out that he had no previous experience in understanding intuition in the past. It was very outside of his realm of understanding. And, not to be stereotypical, but I find often that men, up until the last several years, have been part of that demographic. It is becoming more and more accessible or coming into awareness more for men, which is really exciting. But this was back in 2009, so this was quite some time ago. And when I was talking about the different ways that you can receive intuitive messages and information, I saw the light go on in his head, and he says to me, well, I work in an industry selling some sort of financial product. And in my industry, the closing rate is between 40 and 50%. And my closing rate is 98%. And he's like, I just know somebody walks in, they sit down, I know exactly what it is that they need. And he said, I feel really good about being able to sell them something that fits for them. And so for him, that was where intuition kind of shone, and that's where it came through. But I find that typically intuition comes out in the things that we are the most passionate about, where we have the most interest in things. So some people are really intuitive in selling things. Other people are really intuitive when it comes to relationships. Some people are really intuitive when it comes to business. Some people are really intuitive when it comes to the shenanigans that their kids are up to. Intuition comes in a lot of different forms. And one of the things that I've been talking about recently is the importance of questions. So often people believe that they are passive in the process of receiving intuitive messages and information. If it doesn't just come to you, then it's not there. Or if you're receiving messages that you don't have any control over how you receive them or when you receive them, and both of those things are actually incorrect. When it comes to receiving intuitive messages and information, you can ask. So for more information, for more clarity. So for example, let's say you're thinking about something and randomly a thought pops into your head and you recognize that this is an intuition because it wasn't something that was on your radar. It's just kind of popped in. This is an example of claircognizance, which means clear knowing. And so you can sit there and you can ask, and perhaps for the sake of example, let's say that this is a friend who's popped into your head and you're like, wow, that's really random. I haven't thought about this person in a while. There's no reason that I would be thinking about them unless this is an intuition coming in. So you can sit and you can ask yourself, well, is there a reason that I need to be thinking about this person? And probably you'll get a yes. And then you might ask a question like, well, is there something that I need to be concerned about with this person? And you can see where that's coming from. Is this somebody that I need to get in touch with? Is this somebody who's going to be in touch with me? And so in this way, you can get more and more information about the intuitive message that you're receiving. You are not passive in the experience, and questions are your friend. They are very helpful. One of the examples that was given to me way back when I was doing a lot of education and learning is the ideas of throwing things up and seeing what sticks. So what this particular person did and what he was taught was he had boxes on the ceiling and he would throw a question up, and if it stuck, then that was the path that he needed to go down. So this particular example that I'm sharing had more to do when he was tapping into somebody and asking about which areas in life to focus on. So are we talking about career today? Are we talking about family? Are we talking about relationships? Are we talking about finances? Are we talking about the future? Like, what is it that we're talking about? He'd throw up all of these different questions and he'd see what stuck. And the thing that stuck is what he went with. You can do exactly the same with any questions that you have that you're asking about the messages that you're receiving. Am I receiving this message because it's something I need to be concerned about? Nope, because it falls down. Am I receiving messages because this is somebody that I'm supposed to contact or reach out to? Yep. Okay, well, then you have your message. So please, when you receive intuitive messages and information, ask for more information so that you have better understanding of what that intuitive message is. And often that's also where the action piece comes in. If you've been around for a while, you know that I see that there are 3 different aspects to intuitive messages, both in terms of like receiving and growing that intuition. The first is recognizing that you're receiving a message. The second is understanding what that message is. So that's where this questioning piece comes in. And the third is taking action on it. And we'll talk about those other things another day. So before we get to the next step, we'll pop on, we'll do a quick hello with everybody. And I also want to do the question. I really enjoy doing the choose your own adventure question readings. So I will open up the floor now. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, please feel free to do so in the comments now. If you're asking a question, please be specific. And if you want me to use a particular card deck, please include that as well. So the cards that we have this evening are the blue cards, which is the magical Mermaids and Dolphins. We have the green cards, which are the messages from your angels. And we have the yellow cards, which are the Archangel Oracle card deck. All right, and I will just flash up here. There we go. Our crystals for the choosing a question. So what I'll ask you to do in your mind, in your heart, think about any question that you may have. We are in the energy of the full moon right now. So if you can't think of a question, a great one can be, what do I need to focus on releasing right now? Where do I need to focus on offering forgiveness? In order to fully release things, we need to come into a place of forgiveness, whether it's forgiving somebody else in the situation, forgiving the circumstances that we find ourselves in, or forgiving ourselves, or some combination of all three of those things. So yes, take a moment and think of the question or questions that you're asking and choose a crystal to represent those. We have Angelite, Rose Quartz, and Jet as our options this evening. And I'll just pull that down so that we can put our card spot up there. So I'm going to I was drawn to use the Mermaids and Dolphins Oracle card deck this evening. So we're just going to ask, what do we need to know for people who have chosen the Angelite, who have chosen the Rose Quartz, and who have chosen the Jet for this evening? And let's see if we can do this. Yep. I think that worked. So if you chose Angelite for this evening, the card that we have here is Watch Your Thoughts. And I'm still figuring out a good way to properly light this so that you can properly see the cards that we have. This part may or may not stay. So the card that we have here is Watch Your Thoughts. And when this card comes up, it says that it's really important that you're paying attention to how you're seeing the situation, what you're thinking about, whether it's yourself or other people involved. And this is also a really important card that says, hey, you need to step back from this a little bit. And I would ask myself questions like, are there old stories that are coming up around this situation or around this relationship or around this thing that I'm working on and thinking about? Is there something that I need to change in how I'm approaching this situation in order to invite peace, in order to invite in clarity, in order to invite in hope, so that it can come into my best and highest good? So ask yourself, what can you focus on to shift and change in the situation so that you can move forward? So really pay attention to that thought process that you're going through. The specific message we have here, it's important to only think about what you desire and not what you fear. And I think that's a really significant one too. Often it's really easy to get caught up in a pattern of fearful thinking or the downward spiral. So the downward spiral for me is, what if this thing happens and then this awful thing happens and this other awful thing happens and this other awful thing happens? Then where do I end up? Instead of being up here, I'm way down here, when there could be the opportunity to shift and change that perspective. Well, what if this thing happens, but then this really awesome thing happens, and this other awesome thing happens, and this other really amazing thing happens? So your thoughts are really powerful, and this card is encouraging you to pay attention to the power that you have in your thought processes. So if you chose the Rose Quartz card, the message that has come up for you this evening is the Alchemy card. And this is all about the Midas touch. So it's basically saying that anything that you are focusing on right now, or anything that you're putting your time, energy, and resources into, is going to turn out. It's turning into gold. If you are familiar with the idea of alchemy, this is something that was used by the scientists back in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages. I'm not entirely sure the time frame. This is where history fails me. But at the time, what they were doing is they were taking common metals and they were wanting to turn it into gold. And that's the process of alchemy, is turning something that is not valuable into something that is valuable. And what this card is saying is that's the process and the energy that you're in right now. So focus on what you're wanting to create, how you're wanting to shift and change things, or potentially taking a look to find the things that are already golden in the situation so that you can polish them up and really emphasize them even more. The message that we specifically have here is you have the Midas touch right now, and every project you begin turns to gold. So, just on that note, it is also a really great time to be starting new projects. I take a look at where we are from a moon cycle right now. So, we are in the energy of the full moon. It is, I believe, both tonight and tomorrow night. It sounds like it's like we're at 99% illumination with the moon. So, we're very much in the energy of the moon. And this is a great time for releasing in order to create space and to make room for the next things that we're focusing on bringing to life, to bringing into our energy. So now is a great time to definitely be doing that releasing work and starting to move into that phase of inviting new in. And if you chose the Jet crystal, the last crystal that we have, the card that we have here for this evening for you is the Morning Affirmations card. And this is basically talking about setting your day off on the best foot possible, focusing on what you're wanting to create in your life, the circumstances and the situations you're wanting to create in your life. Over the last couple of months, I have been noticing in social media this mom and her daughter, her daughter's name I think is Scarlett, and always while her mom is doing her hair in the morning, they go through affirmations, and it always has just struck me as just such a beautiful, positive way to start the day. So if you found yourself in a place where you're kind of faltering a little bit, this is encouragement to make sure that you're incorporating affirmations into your day-to-day life, but also focusing on how you're starting your day. The beginning of your day is the foundation for the rest of the day. One of the things I've noticed, I haven't been sleeping very well for about a month and a half now. So mornings have not been my friend. And so instead of having a really active practice in the morning, I'm doing things that are more gentle and more supportive. I think there can often be a belief that we focus on really doing things in order to have a really good start to the day. And that isn't always the best for us, and it's not always in our energy either. So give yourself the space and the permission to see where you are in the morning and to focus on creating the best circumstances for yourself wherever you may be. And the message specifically that we have here: say positive affirmations each morning to open the gates of manifestation. Awesome. So those have been our cards, our choose your own adventure cards for the evening. We'll just go through and we'll say a hello to everybody, and then we'll start looking at the questions that have come in today. So hello to Claudia and Josie. It's wonderful to see both of you. Kathy and Julie and Catherine, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. We have Elizabeth and Lisa and Haley and Cassandra, JC, hello. Valerie, Teresa, Kathy and Haley and Claudia. Let me see, I'm repeating names here. Bambi, hello. It's wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining us. So we've had lots of people pop on, and I'm seeing we have some questions here as well, which is wonderful. So I'm just going to skip down until we find the first one. Let me see. Oh, and I just see that Cassandra said here that she's so glad she caught us this week. She missed last week or two, being uber busy, but you're here now. That's awesome. I'm so glad. And, as I said, I haven't been sleeping very well, so I wasn't here for a couple of weeks too. So that also contributed to the missing, I'm sure. Okay, so we've got Claudia here. Hi, Claudia. Thanks for joining us. I'm so glad that you popped on because I saw that you asked a question a couple of people down beyond where I got to last week. So, okay, so Claudia's asking, what do I need to know about my healing business in the next little while? So the first thing that I'm hearing and seeing is it feels like you are focusing, grounding, and centering. It feels like you have been extending yourself out in some ways. And I'm not sure if this has to do with like the ways that you've been offering things, or if you've been extending out your energy in other ways, but it feels like part of what you're doing is you're bringing your energy back into yourself. I have a lot of centering, a lot of sacral chakra energy that's coming up. So for anybody who is unfamiliar with the sacral chakra, it has to do with passion. For women, it is very much connected with reproductive organs. So there's a lot of creative messages that are coming up here. And again, with the energy that I'm seeing pulling in, it feels to me like you're coming into a bit of a creation phase. It does feel like there is energy that's going out, but I'm kind of wanting to minimize that for just a little bit. As we start to move into the middle part of March, it feels like there's something that you are bringing forth into the world that feels really exciting, really supportive. But you're needing this time of like withdrawing, of pulling in order to best support yourself and the offering that you have. There's a lot of stability and stabilizing work that I'm seeing you doing right now. But as we move into the middle of March, where I'm seeing a lot of energy coming out, it feels like there are at least two, but I'm seeing actually that there are three different branches or three different aspects to the healing work that you are doing. And it feels like one or possibly two of them are things that are feeling fairly steady. So either you have a lot of experience in offering them or you've been offering them for a while because they're feeling like they're fairly consistent. But it's as you incorporate this other piece that it feels like everything starts to move along. And it reminds me a lot of braiding. So you have like one strand and moving over the other, and they all work really beautifully together. So it feels like there are these three different aspects to what you're offering. And there's something that has to do with community, or a group of people with this other offering that I'm seeing coming up. So I'm wanting to encourage you to potentially look at different ways in which you can work with other people or other practitioners in order to offer something that is a little bit bigger, because community is definitely feeling like it's part of it. Let's see. We're going to go to the Mermaids and Dolphins, and we're just going to ask what messages, are coming up for you. Hold on. That was a really big jumper. Sorry, guys. I just like knocked my head and moved the moved the tripod that the card one is on. So oh, that was exciting. Expect the unexpected here on Connection with Intention, my friends. Okay, so the card that we have here is the Tranquility card. So part of the reason that I wanted to choose the Mermaids and Dolphins is because it has to do with manifestation, with money, with finances, with things coming together and moving forward. So the majority of the cards that we have here are action cards, and what we've gotten is an action card that is full of inaction. It is more passive action. So the Tranquility card is encouraging you to make sure that you're taking some downtime to rest, to relax, to recuperate, and to restore yourself. And it feels to me like that's really in line with a lot of the messages that we had coming up. Rather than a lot of energy going out, make sure that you're building yourself up, because you're going to have need for more energy in the future. And now isn't quite the right time to be putting a lot of energy and push out. The specific message that we have here is make time to relax, be still, enjoy your solitude, indulging in much needed self-care. So make sure you're slowing down for the next little bit, Claudia. But you've got really awesome things coming within the next couple of weeks. And this downtime is feeling kind of temporary. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support your way. Awesome. Where do we have here? Oh, Claudia, I'm so sorry. I missed your yellow card request, but I'm hoping that we got the message that you needed tonight. Okay, we've got JC here. Hi, JC. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. And JC is saying, can we check in and see how her son is doing? The Archangel cards is what she's asked for, and Rose Quartz. Well, Rose Quartz is such a perfect choice for you. I don't remember the card that we had specifically coming up for that. My memory is short, apparently. But Rose Quartz is all about unconditional love, support, and nurturing. So it feels like it's the perfect card when we're asking about your son. And when I tap in and connect with him, he's showing me he has lots of, he has an increase in energy. And it feels like there is, He's showing me messages. I don't know the best way to describe this without initially causing concern. So please take a deep breath as I give you this description. What he's showing me is it's almost like a fever that he has had, where he has burned things off, where he has let things go and released. It's feeling very purifying, very clearing, very cleansing, and calming. And it feels like there is stuff that he needed to process, to move through, to work through in order to be able to come into this point in this place where he is right now. And he's showing me a deep settling in his stomach too, where there is renewed energy and where I'm wanting to call this the beginning of passion and the beginning of fire. One of the things that's really striking me is in the imagery and the messages that I'm getting. Heat is one of the things that is coming through. Like he gave me the example of burning, of fire, of fever. So there's a lot of heat that is coming up that is feeling really supportive of where he is. And I'm seeing these all as being really positive things. He is showing me that there is a lot that it is increasing, or it has increased, but it is calming down and it's coming into a place of greater balance. The feeling that I have is that we do have transformation. And I'm kind of reminded of the energy that I experience after having a really good cry. Like, when you just get right in there and you cry, and it's like the ugly cry with like tears all over your face, and your face gets blotchy, and you've got stuff coming out of your nose, but at the end of it you're able to breathe, and it's like, I've just gotten rid of that is the energy that he's showing me. And so it feels like he is in a place of calming and grounding in his transformation. Let's see, we're just going to ask. We're going to go to the Archangel Oracle card deck, which is what you asked. We're just going to ask, what does JC need to know about her son? And I'm hearing health and wellness, and I love this card so much. So the card that we had here is the Peace card. This is Archangel Samuel. And he says here, peace comes from remembering that only love is real. So first of all, the message of peace makes a lot of sense to the messages that I was getting for him, with this great big energy that was coming up around transformation, around shift and change, and coming into a place of peace and coming into a place of calm. And yet there's life that is coming up for him as well. It's almost like the fire existed around him, and now it can exist comfortably within him in the form of passion. So it does feel like he is on a healing path that is feeling positive and supportive. Archangel Samuel is one of the angels who helps and supports us in finding what it is that we need. Like Samuel helps us when we're looking for a job or a career, when we're looking for a partnership and relationship, particularly on a soulmate level. But I'm hearing that Samuel can also help and support us in finding ourselves. And it feels like that's a big way in which Archangel Samuel is helping and supporting your son right now. And of course, I've got so many people who love and care for him and support him, where that energy that they are sharing with him, it feels like it's starting to come through, where he's able to perceive and experience it on a greater level. JC, it's always a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support to you and to your son as well. Awesome. Let me see. We've got Kathy here. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for joining us. Kathy's asking, are our neighbors at the top of the driveway considering moving? And this is interesting. Kathy is also asking for the angel cards, and she also chose rose quartz too. So that's perfect. Okay, so when I ask about the neighbors at the top of the driveway, first of all, I'm seeing like a bit of a block or a barrier or a boundary that's coming up. So I don't know if relationship between the two of you has been challenging or has been difficult, but I'm feeling the need to either put some sort of boundary there, whether you can put something physically there or whether this is just energetically. It feels like that's important. When I ask about, and also what I'm hearing is to really filter the experiences that you have with the people who lived there. So for example, if I know that somebody is just a really miserable person in general, then I kind of use that as a filter when it comes to the experiences that I have with them. So instead of taking things maybe to heart where I might with somebody else, I kind of filter it through and I'm like, oh yeah, but this person's really miserable, so I'm not going to worry about what they're saying too much. And I'm seeing a similar type of filter coming up as much as possible when you deal with them. When I ask about the potential for moving, somebody is getting ready. So it feels like there is more than one person that is involved in that decision-making process. And I'm seeing somebody being really ready. It feels like they're focusing on um, yeah, they're focusing on some sort of benefit. I'm kind of hearing like real estate market or interest rates, or like this feels like this is part of the decision-making process that they're going through. The other person who is involved feels like they're very connected to the land or to the property, or they're wanting to stay for some other reason. So it doesn't feel like they've made that choice and decision just yet, but at least half of the people who are involved in the decision-making process have started to make that choice and decision, and they're like, yeah, I'm ready. And I'm seeing them um, wielding a fair amount of influence in the choice as well. So it feels like they know the pressure points to push with the other person, or they in some other way have dominance in the relationship, because it feels like they are wearing down the other person. So it doesn't feel like they're quite there yet, but I suspect that they will be on their way. And I'm seeing the summer as being a really positive time for them. I suspect that the property is one that either shows well in the summer. Like I'm thinking about where I live on the beach. The summer would be a really good time for anybody who was wanting to sell here, because it's one of the most beautiful times of the year. And it feels like a similar situation might be in play for the property that you're asking about, in that it shows really well in the summer months. So let's just take a look and see, what does Kathy need to know about the neighbors moving? I just have to laugh. Wait until you guys see the card that has come up for Kathy. So the card that we have here is the Clear Your Space card. This is Archangel Raphael. And I just kind of laugh because it feels like that's part of what is happening. So what I'm wanting to encourage you to do for your personal self is do some space clearing within your home, within your energy field, and on the land as well. And this can be really helpful in terms of making sure that any energy that might be seeping into your space, either due to proximity or intention, whether it's conscious or not, that you aren't being affected and impacted by the energies that are surrounding you. There are lots of different ways that you can clear space. You can find somebody who does space clearing. Connecting with your local First Nations could be a really helpful and supportive way to do that. You can also do it with energy work and with intention. One of the ways that we do space clearing with Reiki practices is we send Reiki healing energy all through the space. So what I would do is I would go into the corner of a room and I would connect with the walls within that corner, putting my hands on either side. I'm not sure how much you guys are able to see here with my hands. And I would put one on either wall that I'm in the corner, and I would send energy all through the walls of the home, with the intention that it goes through and it clears all of the energy in the walls around me, and that it goes into that space as well. You can go into one of the corners of your property and have a similar intention where you've got energy that's going out from one side and the other side. It goes all the way through your property, and asking that anything that doesn't belong to you or isn't supportive, that it be lifted up, it be transmuted into love. But there are definitely lots of things that you can do, and you can call on Archangel Raphael and ask her for help and support too. So her message here is get rid of clutter. Oh, clear the energy around you and use feng shui. So there were a lot of energy clearing messages that were coming up for you today, Kathy, and it feels like that's a big part of the direction that you're going in moving forward. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support your way, Kathy. All Right, let me see. So we have Haley here. Hi, Haley. Thanks for joining us. Haley saying, I am feeling so drained, low energy with life, schooling, kids, etc. Anything the guides and cards could tell me to help, and thank you. So, first of all, Haley, I feel where you are. I've been in a similar space and I know that you aren't alone. So before I even tap in and get started, I just want to send a great big huge hug, love, and support your way. As I'm connecting a little bit further, it feels like part of what you're needing is to disconnect just a little bit. The tiredness that I'm feeling, it does feel like it's physical, but it's also feeling really mental and emotional as well. Like it feels like you've been go, 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 trying to juggle all of the balls to keep everything up in the air. And it feels like this is more than just a physical tired. This is feeling like a soul tired. So when I'm asking a bit more about what you can do, I keep hearing and I keep seeing rest. I'm wanting to encourage you as much as possible to do things that both create rest and also start to create a bit of space and opening for passion, because it feels like that's part of what's kind of missing right now too. And it makes a lot of sense, because as I said, you've been go, go, go. You've been taking care of all of your needs and everybody else's needs. And it's been a really long time and a really long journey. So it makes sense that you're in a place that's tired. So honor that and rest. One of the things that I'm seeing is it feels like there can be some times where you do give yourself permission to rest, but the entire time that you're resting, you're still thinking about all the things that you need to do. So it isn't actually restful. And I would encourage you to say, you know what? I am going to give myself this 15 or 20 minutes or 2 hours or however long you're able to create for yourself. And I am just going to rest. I'm not going to think about school. I'm not going to worry about the kids. I mean, to the extent that you're able to say that. And I'm just going to focus on me, on being in this place and doing this thing that I really enjoy. So maybe it's taking a nap, maybe it's, watching a Netflix video, maybe it's popping down to the beach or going to the walk, pardon me, going to the walk, going for a walk, or doing something creative or spending time with friends. It feels like there are lots of different things that you can do and that you're needing to carve out a little bit of time to do that. I'm also hearing and seeing food. Food is feeling like it's a bit of a stressor right now as well. So I know it's really easy when you aren't feeling like you have the energy that you need to make choices that are either convenient and are kind of unhealthy. And it can be really difficult to make healthy choices around food when you're feeling this way. But if there is some support that can help you with that, it feels like that makes a really big difference too. I recently had a conversation with someone on Facebook, and she said one of the things that she was doing, she's a small business owner and she's an artisan as well. So she's crafting and making things as well as going out and selling and promoting them. And she said one of the gifts that she gave herself last year was she had a friend who really enjoyed cooking. And so her friend cooked a bunch of meals for her. And when things got to a point where she was really busy and stressed, she didn't have to worry about cooking. It was already there. So if that's an option for you, it feels like that could be really helpful too. So yeah, pay attention to food, pay attention to taking time. And when you do take time, actually take the time for yourself, focusing on the things that create passion for you, that create enjoyment for you. And school feels like that might be one of the things. It feels like there has been some passion in the decision to go to school, but that at this moment that there isn't a lot of passion in what you're doing. So finding the parts where there can be passion to help offset the parts that are challenging. So I'm going to, it was the Archangel Oracle card deck that I was drawn to for you, Haley. I'm just going to ask, oh, I love this. I'm loving how appropriate all of the cards are for people this evening. I'm just wondering if I can make this bigger. Oh, no, that just puts me forward. Okay. No, that didn't work. All right. So the card that we have here is the Victory card. And again, I couldn't have chosen a better card for you if I'd gone through the deck and I specifically pulled it out. So the Victory card basically says you're on the right track, and that your prayers have been lifted up to God, Source, Universe, angels, whatever your belief system is, that your prayers have been lifted up, they're being heard, and they're also being answered. So I suspect that part of what you've been asking for is rest, some help and some support and some love and some peace and possibly some passion as well. This is Archangel Sandel in his card, and he's saying that what you have been asking for, that has been heard, and be open to receiving. So sometimes we ask for help, but we aren't actually open to receiving help once it's presented. So ask yourself if there are ways in which help is possibly being offered that you, for some reason, have kind of said, no, thank you. Some of the basic ways are things like holding a door open, or somebody holding a door open for us, or helping carrying groceries or lifting in groceries. And because we are physically capable of doing all of these things, we will automatically say no because we don't want to put somebody out. But part of this is help that is being offered to support you in moving forward. So even if this is something that you are able to do yourself, and help is being offered, take a moment to accept it. And one of the best things that you can do is to give the gift of giving to someone else. Often, another reason that we don't accept help or we don't accept gifts is because we are so accustomed to being the givers and we want to give ourselves. But if you can reframe the idea of giving into one that is receiving, in graciously receiving, you give the gift of giving to someone else. Haley, it was such a pleasure connecting with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love, support, and resources your way, and lots of space for rest and passion too. May these be things that are easy for you to find in your life. All right, let me just see here. Oh, and Julie's saying, I wish I had a question. She's just enjoying the show. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you joined us. Okay, we have Elizabeth here. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us. Elizabeth said, hello. I'm wondering if my guides and angels have any advice or messages for me about my emotions and forgiving with my partner. I feel short-tempered. Okay, let's take a look. So this is a big one, and actually one that I'm really excited about. There are a lot of different reasons that emotions can come up for us, and the way that I see emotions is that they are like the street signs that are pointing us to what needs to be looked at, what needs to be supported, and particularly emotions that come up as a result of like hormonal fluctuations. So like those PMS emotions that women have for so long been told to ignore because we're being irrational. I actually see those as being the things that are coming up to the surface. Like our resources to be able to cope have become so thin at that time that emotions come up to the surface, and it's all the stuff that we haven't been dealing with and addressing, and that's part of the reason that they're there. So rather than looking for ways to eliminate the emotions, ask yourself where those emotions are coming from. It's possible that part of the reason that they're coming out with your relationship with your partner is because that's a safe space for you. This is something that I tend to see a lot in parent relationships when they have teenagers, and why is my teenager getting so angry at me, and saying that they don't love me and they hate me? And one of the reasons that they can do that is because it's safe for them to do that in that relationship. It feels like what you're dealing with is kind of part of both of those things. It feels like there are some challenges in your partnership and your relationship that these emotions are coming to the surface. But I'm also seeing that there are other areas in life too that are causing these stressful and challenging emotions to come up. And a big part of what I'm seeing is that there is so much that you've been holding on to and holding things together that it feels like it's just spilling over because there's nowhere else for you to hold on to it. So what I would encourage you to do, there are lots of different things. some things that are popping up, I'm feeling the need to talk to somebody if you can. So if counseling is an option for you, I would encourage you to do that. Sometimes having somebody who is outside of our friend network or outside of our connections can offer really valuable insight and can ask us some questions so that we can come to those realizations for ourselves. Journaling feels like it can be something that's really helpful and supportive, but I'm seeing going into more of the why as opposed to I just want to get rid of this. Another thing that I would encourage you to take a look into is hormonal health and well-being. It feels like you might have started to come into a bit of a shift, like emotionally and hormonally and energetically. I'm just wanting to check in and make sure that there isn't anything else that you can do on a physical level to support yourself and where you are. So there are actually kind of several different aspects that are coming together. It feels like a lot of what you're feeling and experiencing is big. Like this isn't little stuff. So when you talk about feeling short-tempered or experiencing short-temperedness, I can see why, because there's a lot that you're feeling, there's a lot that you're processing, and all of it is feeling really valid from lots of different places. And it feels like unwinding and unraveling that is part of how you come into a point where you're feeling balanced. When it comes to relationship, I do have a supportive relationship that's coming up for you. And again, it feels like that's part of the reason that it's coming out in that way, is because there is a certain amount of support that is being offered for you there. But it also feels like part of these emotions are coming up and coming up in a really big way because it's stuff that's underlying that needs to be addressed. And it feels like that's existing in your relationship and partnership too. We're going to go to the messages from your angels, and I'm just going to ask what messages are coming up for Elizabeth right now to help and support her with where she is. Oops. What do we have here? Yeah, and one thing that's popping up is money too. I'm wondering if this might be a bit of a sticking point that's causing a bit of stress, or it's causing a bit of tension somewhere, but they just kind of flashed money to me and finances as being part of the challenge that underlying as well. So the card that we have here is the Athena card. And this is such a like, oh, holy smokes, like girlfriend, like I've got you kind of energy. It's very strong. And it's basically encouraging you to stand your ground, recognizing what is yours and what is not. So I'm feeling this way because of this experience that isn't feeling balanced. So recognizing that, I'm going to own that and I'm going to work towards making change in that. And it feels like there's a lot of empowerment that's coming up, and it's just saying, hey, you know what? I can make these changes. This is what's not working for me. And this is how I need to move forward. If you want to move forward with me, awesome. We can do it together. But it feels like there's a lot of strength. There's a lot of empowerment that's coming up, and coming into embracing and accepting what it is that you're feeling and seeing it as a tool and a superpower. Often people who experience emotion in a really big or possibly extreme way, in some ways they've been told to shut down or they're too much and they need to control it. And a big part of what I'm seeing is that you're coming into a place where you're seeing that this is a bit of a superpower. Like this is what's showing me what I need to work on. Wow, that's awesome. It's not comfortable, but that's what I need to work on. And at least now I have something where I can start moving forward with it. The message specifically that we have right now, or pardon me, with this card is, it is safe for you to be powerful. You know how to be powerful. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it. There isn't enough light. You know how to be powerful in a loving way that benefits others as well as yourself. And that feels like that's a really important message as well, is that you can be powerful and you can support yourself, and you can also be powerful supporting yourself and supporting and loving others too. This isn't coming from a place where you're needing to destroy, but come into the place and recognize where your power is, where your superpower is in what it is that you're feeling. Elizabeth, it was such a pleasure connecting with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support your way. And I'm hearing Archangel Asriel coming up to help and support you as well. He is kind of the counselor angel, and he helps us in releasing anything that no longer serves us and recognizing. He's a really great angel to connect with, to talk to if you need. All right, we've got Catherine here. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for joining us. Catherine's asking, what would be a good choice for schooling, new job that will really connect with me? Okay, so I've got a couple of different aspects and elements that are coming up. I don't know that I'm specifically getting like a career or a job that's coming through, but I'm getting the things that feel like they're really important. First of all, I'm seeing the need to get your hands into something. And so it feels like there's a physical aspect to what you're doing. Like I've got a lot that's coming up with dirt. So I don't know if it's that you need to get in to get your hands dirty, or if it's physically like you're needing to become involved with working with dirt or with clay. It feels like there's a lot of building that's coming up. And I'm also feeling the need to be connecting and interacting with people as well. There is a part of what I'm seeing also feels like it could have a teaching component and element to it, but I'm seeing that being kind of off to the side. It feels like there's a greater level of um, having experience, understanding something, and then being able to share it rather than that sharing being the focus of the work that you're doing. And again, I am seeing like it feels to me like you're really on the front line with what it is that you're doing. There's a lot of creativity that's coming up here. I'm feeling the need to both incorporate things that are like happening on like a logical. So I'm wanting to stimulate on an intellectual level while at the same time stimulating on an interpersonal level too. Technology was kind of popping up for me, but it feels like that's kind of it doesn't feel like that's the part that you're really focusing on or the part that you're really enjoying. It kind of reminds me of the part that needs to be done as a result of the other work that you're doing. It's kind of like the not bookkeeping, but like the note taking. So, for example, if you go to see your doctor, part of what they do is the medicine, but a big part of what they do too is like the note taking and sending off requisitions and stuff. Like that's kind of what I'm seeing it. The purpose of the work is not to do the note taking and the requisitions. That's just what they have to do as a result of what they are doing, which is hopefully what they're wanting to do as well. So that's where I'm seeing this technological component coming in for you. I'm also seeing something that feels like it is a weaving and a gathering of people. So I suspect that community is also going to be a big part of what you're doing, but it's kind of off to the side. It's this other thing where you're really getting your hands in, they're getting dirty. There is this teaching component and element, and there's also this sense of like bringing people in, bringing people together, but that's not the forefront of what you're doing. Let's take a look and see if we can get some more information about this for you. So I'm just going to ask, what does Catherine need to know right now about work and schooling? A part of what I'm wanting to say is it feels like there is some aspect and element of sciences to what you are doing, because it feels like this is helping with the greater overall understanding of what you're offering. But that's not the sole part of it. Like some of the things that I could see fitting into what we're talking about, like I'm wanting to go into, I think this would be like ecoculture or because I keep seeing like mud and dirt and things that are beneficial. There's a lot of community that's coming up. There is an element of learning. There is an element of teaching, but that doesn't. I don't know if that's quite fitting, but it feels like that could potentially be a direction. There is a science aspect to it, and there is this energy of getting right into something, right down into something. And then I'm kind of flipping into something that feels like there's a healing aspect to it as well. So I'm just So the card that we have here for you, I went to the Archangel Oracle card deck, Catherine, and we asked, what do you need to know about like career and the direction that you're moving into? And to me, this feels like this is a really cheeky response. The card that we have here is claircognizance. So claircognizance is one of the four primary ways that we receive intuitive messages and information. And literally it means clear knowing. So thoughts and ideas popping into your head. And I suspect that that's going to be a really big part of how the thing that you're doing pops in for you. So often, claircognizant messages pop in at times when you're not thinking about anything, or where you're not sorry, I shouldn't say that. You can be thinking about things, but where you're not specifically thinking about, what should I do? What should I focus on? So it just kind of pops in randomly. Oh, I wonder about that. Or it could be something where you need to do a little bit more research on it. So, for example, I wonder if anybody has ever done like healing with mud, and you have the opportunity to dig into it and to look into it a little bit more. So it feels like that's part of what's coming through. I said that this feels like kind of a cheeky message, because basically what it's saying is that that message is something that is still to come. It feels like this is going to be something that is kind of outside the box. So I suspect that there will be a certain amount of additional information that you are getting and gathering. So for example, say you start training in one thing and it's like, yeah, that's part of it, but we've got these other elements that you're incorporating and adding into it. So from that perspective, out of the box, in that it doesn't feel like it's something that anybody's really doing right now, but you put your own spin onto it. And that feels really exciting. And in fact, it feels like that's where creativity is starting to come into the process as well. There does feel like there's some linear aspect to what you're doing, but then there's this creativity where you're just able to really get into it. And that is imagery that has come up for me since we connected this evening and since we tapped in. I'm literally seeing you getting your hands right into it. It's like you've got this pile of mud and dirt, and it's like, I just want to get into this and get like right down into the heart of it. I want to delve in, to dive in. So, what I would say is that this thing is going to be something that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, and that you really enjoy. So, pay attention to the thoughts and ideas that are popping into your head. One of the ways to really get into that space and mindset is to do some brainstorming. So I'd encourage you to get a great big huge sheet of paper, and and some colored markers and pens. Colored mostly because that's something that I enjoy, but if it's not your thing, that's okay too. But make this big. And the whole idea with brainstorming is that there is no judgment about the idea that comes out. So what are things you could do? Well, you could fish, you could do you could help people, you could build things, and just let it go. Give yourself a timer of like 5 or 10 minutes. What are all of the possible things that you can do? And don't filter anything. And then after you've done that, start to go through and pick out, okay, well, what are the things that actually interest you? And then brainstorm off of that. But that is where the opportunity for ideas is coming in for you. And Catherine, it was such a pleasure connecting with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love, support, and lots of inspiration your way as well. But take a look at the dirt. There's something significant about dirt coming up. Awesome. Let me see. We've got oh, Bambi, thank you so much for joining us. That's such a lovely message. Bambi's just said good evening. Thank you for this evening. Blessed be. Bambi, I'm so grateful that you joined us this evening. Thank you. Okay, so let me see. We've got Cassandra here. Hi, Cassandra. Thanks for joining us. Cassandra said that she chose Angelite. And she's asking about the blue deck. And she said, my brother was in a bad car accident on February 4th. I am so sorry to hear that. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and healing his way. Cassandra said, on February 4th, he broke his back. Just wanting healing energy sent his way. And is there anything I should be aware of or do to help him? Okay, let's take a look. So definitely, I'm sending lots of love love and healing his way. I hesitate to send any Reiki his way just because you've mentioned that he has a break in his back. So one of the things to be aware of when we do energy healing, I'm assuming this is true for all energy healing and not just for Reiki. But with Reiki, what happens is we speed up the healing process, which is awesome, unless whatever has been broken is not in correct alignment yet. So that's why I hesitate to send any Reiki his way, because if his back hasn't been set properly and it's not where it's in a point where it can be healing, then we don't want to send any energy. So if there's any possibility that there's a broken bone, you don't send any sort of Reiki or do any energy healing around that until things have been set, because otherwise there is the potential that that's going to need to be rebroken in order to be set because it's healed too much. So I'm going to send general energy and healing to him, not specifically to his back, but more that he has the resources that he needs. And so just to be aware of that until his back has been properly set. You don't want to send any like Reiki healing, and be aware of the type of energy that's being sent, just because we don't want to see him in a worse off place because he's healed more than he should have. Let's just take a look and see what we have coming up in terms of the things that you can do to help and support him. Ooh, so it doesn't feel like there's an awful lot that you're able to do right now. Everything feels like there's a lot of pain. I suspect that he has some support in dealing with the pain, because this level of pain doesn't feel like that's something that they would just go unmedicated with. So that's feeling really helpful and supportive. There's the things that I am wanting to suggest. It feels like you need to make sure that things are where they need to be, like they're set properly before you can do it. Because I'm seeing you being able to run energy back and forth through his body. But again, waiting until it's properly set. I have a lot that's coming up around bone broth, and it feels like this is coming up from a dietary perspective. So encouraging him to eat foods, or perhaps helping him with recipes or in making food if you're close enough. That really helps and supports the healing process that he's going through. I feel like the collagen is what I'm wanting to encourage for the healing that he's going through. What do we have? And when it is appropriate, I'm seeing you sending energy down through his spine. So visualizing the spine with all of the bones and the vertebra. My apologies, my biology is not great. But what I would do is I would get a picture of that on the internet and see each of those individual pieces and focusing on where that energy is needing to go and seeing it coming into alignment. Again, please don't do this until his back is set where it needs to be before the healing happens. I do have Archangel Raphael popping up, which is really helpful and supportive. Archangel Raphael is the angel who helps and supports us with healing, particularly on a physical level. He also helps and supports us in finding the healthcare practitioners that will best support us in the healing process and the journey that we're going in. And it helps them to make sure that they have the resources that they need. So whether it's the knowledge or like the physical resources, like space and time, to help and support. So he really helps and supports us on healing journey in lots of different ways. The other thing that I'm seeing is helping him to take stress off of his plate, because that's the only other thing that's popping up, is that he's feeling like he's got a lot of stress, either things on his mind, he's holding a lot on his shoulders. I'm hearing a lot coming up around responsibilities, and this feels like this might be from a family point of view. So as whatever you are able to do to help kind of take things off of his plate feels like that's really helpful and appreciated. If there is somebody else in his life, like I'm seeing like a partner or somebody along those lines, offering them an ear or support, it feels like that really helps him as well. So I'm just going to ask what messages are coming up for Cassandra. I know if you asked specifically. No, you didn't. You didn't specifically ask for these cards, but I picked them up and was shuffling them while we were talking. So the card that we have coming up for you here, Cassandra, is the treasure chest card. And that's really helpful. Treasure chest talks about specifically money, so material things being provided for, and that we are supported on that, like that physical level. But also, in addition to like money and financial resources, I see this as being an abundance of the things that we need. So in particular with this situation, health and healing, I would say they're probably called for right now, because it feels like he needs a little extra help and support in that. But also having the other resources that we need too, like time and energy. If there are additional responsibilities in his life outside of himself, as I said, like, partner or family potentially, that there is the help, support, and resources for that. Work is also popping up for him as well. So I'm seeing lots of different pieces that are coming into play, and there is a feeling of abundance that is here. So, he's kind of at the very beginning of a recovery journey that he's going through, but I'm feeling really hopeful because I'm seeing that there are lots of pockets of brightness, lots of pockets of hope, and lots of pockets of resources. It kind of reminds me a bit of a video game. And I'm not really sure where this is coming up because I'm not a video game person, but it's almost like you're on the journey of your video game and you're about to face this really big, challenging thing. And you kind of go off to the side and you get, I don't know, like the coins or the tools or the weapons or whatever it is that you need to face that big challenge. And then you use that all up facing that challenge and you continue on your way on the journey. And then there's another pocket that comes up when you face the next big challenge. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing for him, is that it doesn't feel like he necessarily has all of the resources that he needs the whole way through this journey, but there are little pockets and little pieces where he's able to access the things that he needs to support himself moving forward. And it feels like the more that he can focus on that, as opposed to worrying about, I don't have everything that I need right now at the beginning of my journey, but knowing that as he goes along that journey, that those things are going to appear. It feels like it takes a lot of stress off of his plate and allows him to really focus on healing, because that's what his new job is right now. Cassandra, it was such a pleasure connecting with you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and support to you, and lots of appropriate healing to your brother too. May his healing journey be thorough, effective, and as swift as possible. We have come to the end of this evening's Connections with Intention. I am so incredibly grateful that you joined me this evening. I'm Erin Lee of heavenlymessenger.com. If you would like to book your own personal private reading with me, please hop over to my website, bookingwitherin.com. I'm only offering sessions right now distantly, so via phone, Skype, and Zoom. And I don't have an expected date for in-person sessions. It probably won't be until the weather gets nice and we can be outside. So that is still another couple of months off anyway. But in the meantime, we can definitely connect distantly. Oh, yes. And also, Bobby Roundtree and I have launched and started a new project that I'm really excited about. It's called Universal Connections. We have a couple of different talks and interviews that we've shared there. We're going to be connecting and talking with other people in our healing community as well. So there's lots that's going to be happening there over the next little while, and I hope that you'll join us for that adventure. We have universalconnections.ca. And also on Facebook, Universal Connections. Oh, yeah. And we're on YouTube too. All you have to do is search for Universal Connections on YouTube. I hope that you have a fabulous evening, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. Good night.